Hey, welcome to the podcast, Stephaun.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Been watching
You
you from afar for a while, and glad to finally get that invite.
awesome, man. It's funny to hear that, but for anyone who doesn't, oh, well, before I do that, can I get you to tilt your camera down just a tad?
Yes, sir.
There we go. Okay, cool.
You there?
Yep, we're there.
All
For
right,
anyone who doesn't know you, who do you say you are?
man. I am a kid from Tampa, Florida, um, that made it out. More than anything, made it out of tough situations. Made it out of government housing. Made it out of the projects. Right. Made it out of trouble. Of course, I'm the youngest of five kids, so I was able to learn from my older siblings, especially my older brother, 7 and 5 years older than I am. So got to see a lot of trouble coming up from
Mm.
those two when it comes to in house and outside the house. So you know, tough upbringing. But like I said, man, just a kid that made it out and was able to learn from mistakes and make the best of it and flourish. I now consider myself a great dad, a great
Mm.
husband. I'm sure a great employee by my standards.
Mhm.
But but yeah, I'm a guy that made it out, a guy that beat the odds.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Hmm.
didn't realize you were from Tampa. It's
So
how'd you go from Tampa to North Georgia?
so when I was 13 years old,
Mhm.
getting towards the summer of my eighth grade year, just about to get out of eighth grade, my brothers had one that I just spoke of. My brothers had started getting into a little bit of trouble, being about 18 and 20 years old at the time. Started getting into a little bit of trouble, and my mom was kind of getting worried because I had me and my two sisters, who was also older than me,
Mhm.
were coming up right behind them, and she kind of made the executive decision that it's time for a change. And my uncle and his family, Pierre
Mhm.
Hendricks,
Yep, yep.
they were in Dalton because Pierre's mom worked for Mohawk.
Mm.
And my mom was talking to her brother, Pierre's dad, saying, hey, things are going on down here. Like, what should I do? And he said, hey, little old Dalton, there's not much trouble to get into here. It's quiet, it's
Yeah.
friendly, it's family friendly. Come up here, see how you like it. But we one thing we can assure you of is the kids will graduate. Everybody will be safe, and it's
Mhm.
a slower pace of life. And my mom packed us up. Uh, Not immediately. It took a while. I think I got to Dalton about a week or two after school began my freshman year. So
Mm.
I was a new kid in school, but we left Tampa the summer after my eighth grade year. So got up there, was living in Mountain Woods Apartments right across the street from Dalton High. Um, and stayed up there with Pierre and his family until we were able to secure our own spot. And that's how we got to Dalton. And next thing you know, I'm there for a few years before I go off to school.
Yeah, that's awesome. I,
Yeah.
what was the transition like, especially since like you already made a good number of friends and like you're going from like Tampa, big city, Florida, like I'm sure you're thinking of like Miami, Raising Cane's, different things like that.
Yeah, man. The transition, it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, it was tough. You go from being an inner city kid in a big city
Hmm.
to going to a much slower pace. The kids are different, right? The kids
Hmm.
grow up different. The kids are a little bit behind in the sense of what they know and their experiences.
Hmm.
Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. That's actually a
Right,
great
right.
thing, right? But you know, in all candidness, I had grew up in all black schools my
Hmm.
whole life, right? I had never been in a school that wasn't necessarily probably 80, 85% black,
Hmm.
or Latino in some way. And
Yeah.
then I come to Dalton, I'm just like, oh my goodness,
You
man.
flip the script.
I flipped the script, and now we're 80% white at the time, and then a lot Latino, and then probably a small population black. And it was just like, huh. So that transition happened. I had to figure that out.
Hmm.
It was also my first time playing organized sports, right? Because
Hmm.
coming up, being the youngest of five, it wasn't a lot of financial stability, wasn't a lot of money to go around for
Right.
extracurriculars, especially for me being the youngest.
Hmm.
Um, so I finally get an opportunity to play. football because it's free in the high
Yeah.
school, right? They give you all the equipment, they give you the cleats and all that stuff. So I finally got to get on the football field. I've been playing backyard football for so long,
Mm.
and one of the things I joke about with my buddies all the time is the first time I put on pads playing in Dalton on the freshman and JV team
Mm.
was easier than what I was experiencing in backyard football
Yeah.
in Florida. And and it's wild because we joke about that all the time. That Florida Georgia football, that high school football dynamic, and I felt much more comfortable than some of my teammates that have been playing tackle football, you know, for years. So
Yeah.
that transition was. I'm glad that I had that athletic, I just had the natural athletic ability.
Yeah.
Because had I not had that plus the extra transition, it would have been much harder to make friends and kind of integrate myself into a new culture. So I'm glad
Mm.
I kind of was able to fall into the football scene once I got there.
Gotcha. That makes
Yeah.
sense because it seems like you just remember when we used to play wide out with Coach Thompson, it's like you
Mm-hmm.
just made it look effortless. Like the way it was like between you, I'm blanking on a couple of the guys' names, but that's like your senior class. I'm kind
Mm-hmm.
of looking at you how Jalen Fields that I mentioned earlier, how he looked at us and like some of the upperclassmen. You always look at them and be like, man, how did they make that look? It's like they gliding on water. They're just out here running routes, doing this and that. And then you watch like college players play and you watch professionals play, and it's like, hey, these things that you learn here, these fundamentals get you to the next level. And it's like you can't have false starts whenever you're getting off. Like you can't be dropping your back foot. It's like, yeah, it looks cute when they do it there, but like we don't have that luxury over here. You gotta get off with that first step.
Yeah, man, that part right there. It was a coach when I first got there. Coach Patterson was
Mm,
there. His son played. I can't remember his son's name, but Coach Patterson was there my freshman year,
mm,
and I think he saw it first. For me, I was just out there running around. Right, I
right.
had never played organized ball, but I was shifty. I was naturally fast. I was
Mm,
shifty. I could cover people because you know, South Florida is full of little fast guys. So I had been
yeah,
covering little fast guys in backyard football for years.
right.
So when I get out there and now I'm covering slow, you know what I mean? People ain't running as fast, People ain't running as fast. So it's a little easier for me to cut and move.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was, camp had already ended. They were already 2 games into the season, and I pop up on the scene on the freshman squad, and
Mm,
you got people looking around like, "Who is that?" And Coach Patterson was the first one to kind of say, like, "Hey, man, you look like you got something on you."
mm,
But I was just out there excited to have the pads on, excited to run around with a helmet on. I was just excited, man. I was just, catching the ball naturally. It wasn't necessarily a thing for me,
yeah.
and I was kind of oblivious to what I was doing at
Mm,
that point
right, right.
until he pulled me to the side and was starting to do individual work with me
Mm,
and go through the playbook with me because I was struggling to learn that because I never had to do, a playbook. That's the kids were just drawing the dirt. You
right.
go up here, then you go left, or right on the ball. So I
Yeah.
had to learn a playbook, and he started taking time out, and I started to really understand, like, oh man, like he sees something in,
Mm,
and then he talked the coaches into putting me on the JV squad or at least practicing against the JV squad, and I
mm.
was doing the same thing over there. As far as playing cornerback, a lot of people don't know I started out playing cornerback.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew
I
like you
was
transition later on, but it's like, okay, that makes sense. It's like,
Yeah, I started playing cornerback, and I was just I was making plays on the freshman and JV level
mm,
in practice. Coach saw something in me, started working with me individually after practice, and even during school, he would grab me, and make me take my lunch, and I would
mm,
go to
mm.
his little dungeon room. I don't know if you know where like the nursery is in Dalton High. They had a nursery down there where the
Yeah.
playground was. He had an office just in the cut. I would grab my lunch, come down there, and he would throw on film, or he'll throw on get on the whiteboard and work with me, and that was huge for me. I think right there is where I kind of realized, like, man, I might have a little something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's dope. So,
Hmm.
so I guess like as you're getting better in high school, like how's the transition kind of going like from your sophomore year going forward? Does it feel like it stays easy, or at what point did it start to shift for you? Or if
Uh,
it did?
Um, so of course we get through my freshman year, and that's kind of whatever. I transitioned into track, and
Hmm.
that's when I really started to dig in with Coach Thompson. Coach whole freshman year, Coach Thompson ignored me. Right. I don't even know if he knew my name freshman year, but I'm out there for track. I didn't necessarily know how to run. I was naturally fast, didn't know how to run. I wasn't
Hmm.
on a 4x1 team at
Yeah.
all, at all. Just terrible technique. And later in the year, somebody gets hurt, and I need to fill in on the B team 4x1, and we pretty much almost get the A team
Yeah.
in practice, but our fourth leg had to go up against this guy named Dusty Eggleston,
Mm.
um, fastest white boy I ever met by far,
Yeah.
blazing speed, ridiculous man, and he got the baton fourth. I had beat my leg and had us in the league
Hmm.
and handed it off. And then the A team handed it off to Dusty, and it was a wrap from there. And I think coach was just like, but it was really late. So we only had like one meet left. So after that, transitioned back into football. And during the summer, we go to where we go, Bell Buckle, right?
Yeah.
For camp. We go to Bell Buckle for camp, man. And I think that camp right there kind of solidified me as a football player
Mm.
because I went out there skinny old me and in blocking drills, and I was just balling out at the time. I put one of the guys on his back, one of the big shorts, one of the short stocky guys who just like a little ball of muscle. I
Hmm.
get out there and I just get up under his pads, lift him up, put him on his back, and I was just like, oh, okay. So it's
Hmm.
just like that over and over. You start doing little small things like that and realize, hey, I can compete with these guys. These upperclassmen, like I can compete with these guys. I can do this. And then next
Yeah.
thing you get that confidence. And I started making plays. And next thing you know, I'm the starting corner at the beginning of the year and starting at receiver,
Mm.
right?
Right.
But funny thing about transitioning into sophomore year, uh, transitioning to sophomore year, first player of the year. I'm starting at corner and receiver.
Mm.
Why I don't know. I couldn't catch for anything. Like I couldn't catch, man. It was frustrating for me because I could get open all day, but I couldn't catch.
Mm.
First player of the game, we're playing Northwest. Nobody knows who I am, so nobody knows what to expect of
Right.
this new guy playing receiver with the number 37, which was trash. But I get out there, man. First play of the game, they got this play called Cadillac, man. It's a play action to the running back, backside left side does a post, backside does a dig in,
Hmm.
and they call that for me. They tell me all week that's my play
Yeah.
all week, man. And walkthroughs and practice, I'm catching it, and everything's good. First play of the game, um, Logan Coffee, man, that rolls out, hikes the ball. I'm hyped. Everybody's all excited. I tell my mom the first play is coming to me.
Mm.
Everybody's excited, but I think doing that, I kind of hyped myself up too much. Logan rolls out, man, steps up. I'm running my route. This guy in front of me don't have a chance. Don't have a chance. The worst athleticism at corner I ever seen. Run past him, man. I am running like movie style, just slow motion, just up, and I see the ball come up. I'm like, oh yeah, this is happening. I'm about to solidify myself out here, man. And I look up, ball over my shoulder, and I
Mm.
drop the ball. And I was just like, my goodness, man, I dropped that ball, and I became a decoy for the rest of the year. I was a really fast decoy. I wasn't gonna catch it, man, but you never know. You never know if
Yeah.
they're gonna throw it. So I just run real fast and
Right.
open up everything else for everybody else, and just play scrappy on defense, and of course scrappy in my blocking, man. But that year was great for me. I had a lot of great blocks. Right,
Hmm.
it was a decoy. I was out, got a couple interceptions, made some plays on defense.
Hmm.
Thankfully we had a good enough team where I didn't have to make a ton of plays, and I just kind of went out there and made the scrappy plays, did some of the dirty work. And after that season, I got my first college letter from Vanderbilt, a handwritten letter from Vanderbilt, and I still have that letter to this day. A handwritten letter
Yeah.
from Vanderbilt changed my life because at that moment I was just like, oh my gosh, like I think I'm a football player, and I was talking to my mom about it, like, hey, like I think I can, I think I can go to school for this,
Hmm.
not school for football, but with this, I can go to school
Right, right.
with this for free. And that moment right there kind of solidified it for me. And Coach McClure kind of drilled it into me like, hey, a lot of sophomores aren't getting letters. This was
Right.
before how things are today where they offer eighth graders. Right.
Hmm.
So, but hey, a lot of sophomores aren't getting letters, especially handwritten letters
Right.
from colleges. So that changed things for me. And naturally going into the spring and track after I kind of learned how to run a little bit.
Hmm.
I kind of to fast forward a little bit through that. I ended up being the fastest kid in the school,
Hmm.
right? At the time, after not being even on the 4x1 team the previous year. So I ended up fixing my run technique and was the fastest guy in the school. Upset a couple people who thought that should have been them at the time, but upset some folks and ended up getting the school record that year, my sophomore year.
Oh
Ended up
wow.
getting the school record at a 10.44
Hmm.
and in the 100 meter. And but at the same time, I had that college scholarship for football on my back. So
Hmm.
for me, track was back here. Before that, I figured track might be my thing. But once I got that
Hmm.
letter, it's like, no, 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 I'm not focusing on track.
Right.
So I peaked speed wise as far as the 100 meter in my sophomore year, and then I realized I need to put on some weight. Started talking to more college coaches because once that first letter came,
Yeah.
now the floodgates were open
Hmm.
and kind of transitioned me in from a sophomore just kind of playing and having fun to a guy who was trying to go get a big time scholarship.
Yeah. Man, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for you at this time, like you're about 2 years in, how's life at home? Is it better? Definitely you got away from, I mean, not got away, but like you've moved away from Tampa. Like what was the inner city? Like you're in this quieter environment. You've played some sports. You're kind of making friends with the guys on the team. And like now you're like Dalton is a smaller town. So like it's not too hard to know like everyone around town are kind of like make your way around.
Mm-hmm. That piece was really good. Me and my family was living a much slower paced life.
Hmm.
It was simple, it wasn't something we necessarily we were used to. Things
Hmm.
were simple. Like we had a schedule for the first
Hmm.
time ever. My mom had a job where she was now at home at
Hmm.
5 o'clock when we got home.
Nice.
I think she went early, so she wasn't there when we left. But my sister was a senior when I was a freshman, so we were fine. But it was the first time in our life that we actually had a set schedule for things like, oh, we eat at 6:30,
Hmm.
we are going to bed at whatever time, you know what I mean, or at least the house is kind of calm at a certain time. And then now at high school she's not telling us what time to go to bed, but at the same time we had a schedule. We knew, okay, get home, do this, do these things at 6:30, we're eating, take your bath. It was a set schedule. Whereas
Yeah.
in Tampa, her schedule was so wild, and sometimes she wouldn't be home until later in the night.
Mm.
And we had to, my sister would cook or things like that. So it was a little bit more um, chaotic down there. Not necessarily chaotic in a terrible way, but
Yeah.
it wasn't consistent.
Right. Right.
So we finally had consistency, and then I also started to attach myself to some solid friends. The Thomases,
Mm.
Steve Thomas, Matt
Yeah.
Thomas, me and Matt still to this day brothers, man. We still talk all the time, laugh all the time.
Yeah.
Saying with Steve, um, that family took me in, man. And they took me. It's funny, they took me in going back to freshman year. One time after practice, I usually would walk home to
Mm.
the cliffs right down the hill. We
Yeah.
stayed in the cliffs. And I would usually walk home after practice, and it was just pouring rain like this. Like, there's no way I walk home with my backpack, like this, or my
Mm.
backpack's going to be filled with water when I get home. Like, there's no
Mm.
way. So I was just standing there, and anybody that know Bishop Thomas, man, heart of gold, man, God rest his soul. That's my god dad. I call him dad.
Yeah.
Um, call Miss Thomas' mom. But I was just sitting there, and Steve and Matt got in the car on me. Didn't even think about it. Just got in the car, man. Knowing I didn't have a ride. They
Mhm.
got in the car and then they drove off. And it's like, for me, I'm just kind of sitting there like, shoot, man, I don't really want to ask a stranger for a ride because
Mhm.
at that point I didn't know them as much. So I'm just kind of sitting there like, man, I need a ride, but I can't even ask.
Mhm.
Um, and they turned around, like they drove off, and I'm
Mhm.
sitting there, and next thing you know, it turned around, and I heard Bishop open up the window. Hey, man, you need a ride? And I was like, yes, 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 I need a ride. Um, and then from that day on, man, we just started hanging out, and that was my village, man. Those
Yeah.
guys, we would spend the night together. Me, Matt, Steve, Pierre. We just became best friends, man, like brothers. So, uh, I had friends down in Tampa, but it was just like that was a little bit different because now I have like a core group of friends that we hang out all the time.
Yeah.
Bishop treated me like a son. I finally had like a father figure in my life where like this dude is solid. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? This is a solid guy. And we haven't really dove into like my home life of like dad and things like that, but Bishop was a father figure for me during the time. So that was huge for me, especially at 14, 15 years old, for him to
Right.
grab me up and understand like, hey, this is a good kid. He's kind of drawn to my sons.
Mhm.
Bring them over, right? Feed me dinner, hang
Yeah.
out, stay all weekend, take me to church. Kind of got me into church at the time where we didn't necessarily have a church home,
Mhm.
and I would go to church with them. I would spend, all the time with them. Even during
Yeah.
the week, sometimes I'd be like, "Hey, mom, I'm gonna take some extra clothes because I'm gonna stay with Steve and Matt,"
Yeah.
and that wasn't a problem. So, I finally kind of had kind of like a second family structure, right?
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was cool to see.
Man, that's dope. We can
Mm-hmm.
get into the a little bit more in your background because when you were talking about football, I was kind of curious like how um you took to the coaching because I guess with a lot of coaches, even for me, it's like um it feels like at times some coaches might get on your nerves, but it's like they really become those father figures because like they spend time away from their kids and they like pour into us and it's like knowing that they care about you. Like you mentioned Coach Thompson earlier, like he would fuss at us a bit here and there, but it's one of those things where it's like the net of it is it's like I'm out here spending time with you guys, and if you show that you're interested in something, it's like okay, like I can put more attention here, and like even the first coach your freshman year that put that time and be like okay, I see you got a little bit something there, so like come during
Mm-hmm.
your lunchtime, come hang out, like let me show you what's going on here, like teaching you the ropes type thing. So like
Mm-hmm.
how did you take to that from where you were initially?
It was weird for me, to be honest. I had never put myself in a position to be I wouldn't call it son, but I had never put myself in a position, or no man has put themselves in a position to kind of be an impactful figure in my life, right?
Mhm.
So I didn't know what was going on, and to be 100% honest, I hadn't spent a lot of time around coaches because I'd never been coached before. I'd never been
Right.
in organized sports, so I didn't know what to expect. But I knew I liked what was going on. Like I said,
Mhm.
even though I was getting chewed out sometimes, even though I didn't get chewed out a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because I was a ball of energy. I would play all day, I would practice all day, and I would try to do it the right way.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna loaf. I'm gonna be first on my drills. I'm gonna do all
Yeah.
that. So I didn't get yelled at a lot, but I got more so directed a lot.
Right.
And that was my first time dealing with a male figure that often, right?
Mhm.
That was kind of looking at me for everything. Like you like I'm seen at every time. Like you see me in everything I'm doing. Um, but I liked it though. I knew I did like it. It was kind of weird just having somebody on me as much as they were,
Yeah.
but it's because they believed in me, and I never took offense, and I'm
Mhm.
grateful. I'm grateful for that aspect of it because that translates to now in work in professional life, right?
Yeah.
Because you may have deadlines that somebody has to hold you accountable for, and I think that just got me prepared for accountability as a man and as a dad and things like that. So
Mhm.
having those guys take me under their wing and really pour into me
Yeah.
their time is the most important. That's the most important. Coach Thompson at that time was a very new coach.
Mm,
Coach Patterson was an older coach, but he ended up leaving after my freshman year. So
mm,
he made an immediate impact. Coach Thompson made a lasting impact, but
mm,
Coach Thompson was a very new coach. He didn't know
yeah.
as much as he knows now, right?
Mm,
So at that time, he was giving everything he had to me.
yeah.
And Coach McClure was a tenured coach, so he had a lot of knowledge, but he wasn't my position coach. I was
Right.
with Coach Thompson and Coach Land more than anybody,
Oh yeah.
and for those guys to give me their time, give me their ear when I needed it, it
Yeah.
meant so much, man. Because like I said, I never had that dad or that father figure to kind of give me that time. So I loved it, even when I was in trouble, even when we
Yeah.
did have extra up downs and things like that. I never took it as punishment. I took it as lessons learned.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, man. And even Coach Weingarten, he's doing great things right now. I think he's in the college ranks right now coaching.
Mm,
Um, he would take his time to help me go over the playbook, even though I had it down pat. But I was so involved with the playbook,
mm,
and I was a decoy. Of course, I was getting the ball 20 plus times a game, but I was also a decoy a lot too. So just making
mm,
sure I understood what the goal of each play was and things like that. So
mm,
and not even taking time away from his family. What he did
yeah.
was he brought me into his family on Thursdays. I would go to his house and we would eat. His wife would cook, we would eat, and after what is it called, after the walkthroughs, go to his house and we eat. We
Mm,
go to the playbook and sit and eat dinner with his wife and kids, man. So it's
mm,
like he didn't necessarily have to take time away from his family. He brought me into his, and that was huge as well, man. So I
yeah.
appreciate all those guys for the sacrifice and and integrating me into their families and their situations and just really pushing me to get to my goals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah. When you mentioned those two, especially, I think I had some interactions with Coach Weingarten because he was our offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. And
Yeah.
it's like Coach Thompson's the wide receiver coach, both played wide receiver, and then Coach Land's the DB coach. And it's like, of course, when we have wide receivers in DB, we got to go back to back and be like, okay, who's
Mm-hmm.
gonna who's gonna get the business this day? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna show up, you're gonna catch the ball, that type of thing. But
Yeah.
like the way they would approach thing and like the time that they would took to go over something with you over and over and over, it really showed in that like so long as you're showing up, so long as you're putting forward the effort, even if your hands aren't there, it's like, hey, like you're running your route more precisely, you're like figuring things out. It's like you're not walking on the field. It's like as soon
Yeah.
as you hit the field, you're jogging everywhere that you go. And it's that like it really showed that they cared about you. And it's like, okay, these people seem pretty good. And
Yeah.
it's for me, it's kind of different because it's
Mm-hmm.
like um growing up in the States and like I didn't really know much about football, but like I started it in like seventh grade and similar to you, I was just like happy to be there, like happy to do these things, hang out with a bunch of guys and like we're all doing something together. But it wasn't until I think I ran into Coach Mitchell as a wrestling coach where he came in my junior year. So I don't know if you would have met him, but he was like a defensive coordinator coach. And even talking with him through this and like seeing like, hey, what was your motivation to come in? And like what were some of the things you're facing? It's like you have people that are hard on you, similar to how my dad was kind of hard on me growing up, but it's like, oh, okay, that like you're telling me these things because you care. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, hey, let me just hug on you and be like, oh, it's okay, it's okay. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. We don't have
Yeah.
time for that right now. You need to wake up,
Mm-hmm.
get your act right, and do this now. Because if you don't do this, like somebody's gonna light you up, and then I don't want to be responsible for not preparing you for the situation when the situation kind of happens upon you.
Mm. And that takes it further than just the game that they're teaching, man. Those are life lessons, and
Yeah.
that at the moment we didn't realize we were getting. And I draw so much from sports, of course, from high school, then up through the college ranks,
Mm,
and I just draw so much from those experiences because like you said, you have to prepare. You have to prepare correctly, right?
Mm,
You get on the
right.
when you get on the field, you jog to your next station. You get there, you do everything correctly because what how you do the small things is how you're going to do the big things. And
Mm,
if you walk around on the field, if you're loafing, and if you're looking up to see if the coach is looking at you to see if you can get away with not doing a certain thing, that stuff translates, man. And
yeah.
having that staff that we had with great men, not just, oh, this is a great coach, so we brought him in. No, like
Mm,
I applaud Coach McClurg and whoever else had anything to do with putting together that staff because they put together a staff of great men.
yeah.
And that's what I appreciate about Dalton High. Now I'm sure the boosters and everybody else wants championships and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
nah, man, like we seem to have a really good track record of finding great men, putting them together to lead young men. That is
Yeah.
that is one of the biggest things for me um, about Dalton High and my experience at Dalton High, and I've never seen anything different from when it went from McClurg to Weingarten to Land to now Coach Carpenter. Like
Mm,
they always seem to find the right people,
right.
and I love that. So
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. It's good. I hadn't talked to Coach Carpenter in a while, but it's funny because coming to Dalton, it's like I was really our family was friends with their family, and they really kind of took us under their wing, and it was
yeah,
something really neat to see that like people that you didn't know yesterday all of a sudden can like show interest in you and really show up for you when you need them to. I,
for
I am
sure.
curious, how did you improve your hands? Because by the time I met you, like you're pretty slick with it. Like I
Yeah,
remember we had I think somebody put it together, the Requiem for a Dream background music, and you're in there, do your spin move, and people are like during the morning announcements, people are going, "Wow, you just like no,
yeah.
that stop it, guys, stop it."
Uh, man, as far as improving, dude, I just worked at it, man. So a couple things. I'm not going
Hmm.
to discount the fact that Coach McClurg realized he had something
Hmm.
and was like, "Oh no, this guy's going to take us a little bit further than we've been." Like, don't get me wrong, the year before I got there, my freshman year, they had just came off, uh, you know, the semifinals or something like that, lost in the semifinals, lost in the dome.
Hmm.
So they were trying to get back there. The year
Hmm.
that my freshman year, we kind of flamed out a little bit
Yeah,
after we realized what was going on. It was a mutually beneficial relationship where they knew if this guy can catch that ball,
yeah,
we're good because he's gonna run past whoever is in front of him anyway.
right.
Um, so I wasn't allowed to take many days off,
Hmm.
even during track, and I wouldn't practice during spring ball. I never done spring ball, and I hated that
Hmm.
because spring ball is a great time, but I've never done spring ball. But even after track practice,
Hmm.
my track coach is the receivers coach. You think
Right.
he about to let me out of there without getting on the jug machine? Come on, man. So he would have a bag of football. The right by the field is the little equipment room, equipment
Yeah,
shack or whatever, and we would have to stay out there and we just get it in.
yeah.
We just got it in because they recognize that, hey, like right now he's raw. He's a raw specimen right now. So if we can just get that repetition in him, get these routes in him, he's going to be
Hmm.
good to go. And I don't think it's that I couldn't catch
Hmm.
at the beginning. I think I would psych myself out.
Yeah.
And because I was more of a deep ball specialist, I wouldn't,
Mm.
I wasn't necessarily, hey, go run this 2 yards and catch this quick. No, no, no. Send them out, send them on the
Yeah.
post, send them on the fade. And while the ball is what was in the air, and I didn't necessarily realize this until I started coaching,
Hmm.
um, I would psych myself out while the
Hmm.
ball was up there. I would
Right.
run, and I got so much time. It's only about 3 seconds because the
Right.
ball's not
Right.
traveling that long, but you got 3 seconds. That's a long time to process this, and you're just running and looking up and like, oh my gosh, I'm going to catch it. What if I don't catch it? Oh my gosh, it's like you psych yourself out, and then, you know.
Yeah.
But after a while, like it's more repetition than anything, and after you let the ball hit your hands a
Hmm.
hundred times a day for a while, and next thing you're doing it in practice. Then after practice, you catching 100 balls.
Yeah.
After a while, it now it's natural. Now you're not
Hmm.
even thinking. And that's a lot about football in general.
Hmm.
you don't really know who you have. You don't know what type of athlete you have until they're just reacting to things. When they're
Right.
thinking, you're moving slow. When
Right.
you're
Right.
thinking in football, you're moving slow. You
Yeah.
get to that point where you're now just reacting. The plays are second nature. You know what you need to do is second nature. Now you're just reacting to what the defense throws at you,
Yeah.
or if you're on defense, what the offense throws at you. That's when you open up. So I think it's just I just got comfortable, man. I already had the ability, the natural ability was there. It's
Yeah.
just, am I going to put in the time to to make it natural?
That makes so much
Mm-hmm.
sense because I think I remembered some of the guys' names. It was between you, Patrick Barkley, Von
Mm-hmm.
Hankins, and like you guys,
Mm-hmm.
like as soon as you line up, it's like, okay, these three are out here. I know there's a fourth guy I'm probably forgetting, but like,
It was Zach. Forget
oh,
Zach's
that's right, Zach
last
Woodward.
name. Zach Woodward. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was junior year though. That was my junior year. Those guys were seniors.
Mm.
And then that was the group from my sophomore year up to sophomore and junior year. We had me and Pat were.
You lost power?